LPM is a party for Nama Damaras, that it is against Ovambos, that it doesn't have Hereros at the forefront, that they are just fighting for genocide, that they just do not want to work with anybody else. That type of thinking we must set aside and put hands and heads together for a new revolution for justice, equality, and economic freedom in our lifetime. And so the question we're asking is, then what is to be done? What must we do? And these are but some of the answers we have. The others are contained in our manifesto. Other issues are contained in our basic documents, in our constitution. These are just but those that we think are the 0.1% that we should do urgently. First, in order to transform our Namibian society and to reach the penultimate objective of one nation, one society, there needs to be deep economic and political reforms urgently. On the front of political reforms, we have said that there is a need to amend the Namibian constitution to ensure that cabinet ministers should not be members of parliament. Ministerial and executive accountability are important ethos in a democracy. As long as the executive is in a dominant position as it relates to their own political party and have a numerical superiority and political seniority, executive accountability and parliamentary oversight will not be meaningful in this country. Second, parliamentary standing committees must obtain greater stake in the pursuit of oversight so that the SOEs and the offices, ministries, and agencies are regularly checked and performance measured. Just the other day, there became a debate quite important for you in the media to also understand that for the first time, it seems that the number of backbenchers of SWAPO is less with 2 to 3 seats than those of the combined opposition. Because the rules of parliamentary standing committees were written at a time when SWAPO's majority was more than 2/3, and that they had a dominance of backbenchers in the numbers, the rules favored them. But now SWAPO party is beginning to say that cabinet ministers can also be members of the parliamentary standing committees to do the oversight function. Think about it, that the Prime Minister of the Republic of Namibia becomes a chairperson of the Standing Committee on Natural Resources, or that the Minister of Environment becomes a Cabinet Committee chairperson of Natural Resources. The Cabinet Committee that has to do an oversight function will have the Minister of Environment reporting to himself and doing oversight functions of himself. This is where SWAPO is trying to take the debate. That's why we are saying there must be a strong interest by those in the middle class, by those that are not members of parliament, to follow how parliamentary standing committee elections are done and to speak up in social media and all other spaces and say it is wrong. If the combined opposition have more votes, they must get the standing committee chairpersonships. We must, as a country, at the medium to long term, begin to pursue a federalist system of governance to deepen common understanding and for a better and equitable resource sharing. The current system of a unitary state weakens the people's voice and over-centralizes power at the center. It perpetrates with all power at the center the notion of the deep state, because all the resources are at the center. All the power, the legislative power, the executive power, the administrative power, and the judicial power is concentrated at the center. And this undermines democratic accountability as the actors in the center act to self-preserve and protect each other. You can't, in all good faith, think that you will take the executive to the judiciary and challenge them and be successful, particularly if that court case involves a senior political office bearer. Hardly can you imagine that you will succeed, because the judiciary eventually is signed off by the head of state that has linkages, when they were private citizens, to other GIPF corrupt practices, some of them, and others connected to other business ventures before they became judges. Right now, we have a governor of the Bank of Namibia who is involved in the financial sector, but the Bank of Namibia has the legal responsibility to execute an oversight function on the financial sector itself. How does the Bank of Namibia governor avoid conflict of interest circumstances? How? Imagine if we take the CEO of Standard Bank and make him the governor of the Bank of Namibia. How will that work? This is more or less the situation in which Johannes Kawaga finds himself. He has investments and businesses in the financial services sector. He has to go and be the regulator of the very sector he is involved in. Imagine you are the pastor, you marry the woman, but you also can decide to divorce her because at the other side, you are also the magistrate. Then we do not also agree with governorships, but if the governorship system continues, it should become an elective position so that the real wishes of the people on the ground can at least be tested. So that's the few in terms of economic reforms. I will jump some in terms of political reforms. We go to economic reforms and we say SOEs must be liquidated and others must be merged, others must be departmentalized, and thereby reduce state expenditure and streamline government business processes. These SOEs include AMTA, Agronomic Board, RCC, Transnamib, Air Namibia, NAMPOT, and all other sectoral SOEs that are not meeting the objectives of job creation and dollar return for value. Reform that agriculture and land reform developed without a strong agricultural sector. So we have proposed and continue to propose again a 5 billion earmarked annually to empower the agricultural sector. Agriculture creates jobs. In regions such as Kavango and Zambezi, those regions should receive huge amounts from the allocation of 5 billion we're proposing, while irrigation schemes all over the country should be expanded without any delays. Think about it. A region as Zambezi that we have in Namibia is the size of Japan. Look at how big Japan is, and look at how Zambezi is still in poverty. Yet it has 3 major rivers, running water, fertile soil, good hardworking people, land privately not owned but publicly owned. What prevents us from going big with agriculture, irrigation in Zambezi, in Kavango? What prevents us? Who can stop us? Nobody. Nobody. Small-scale farming will have to be promoted urgently, and an agriculture fund as well as an agriculture insurance system set up to buffer farmers from drought impacts. This agriculture insurance system is an important one and has shown that it buffers farmers from drought and natural disasters in such countries as India. In Namibia, if many farmers, even in the subsistence sector, had a small insurance that they made a contribution to annually, at least some of them would, when drought came, be able to be reimbursed some significant amounts of money so that they can again help themselves also to restock the value of the properties they have lost. Then, one of the reasons that Namibia is said not to have power shortages is because we pay over 25% more to Eskom. In other words, we pay premium and above to Eskom. And that's why Eskom does not switch off our electricity. And that's why our electricity is also very high. South Africans pay less. Eskom exports to us. We pay them 25% more. And we think South Africa is a good neighbor. We are paying highly. Yet, with renewable energy and green energy capacity, we can actually become a net exporter of energy and reduce, if not completely remove, our energy dependency from Zambia, Mozambique, and perhaps South Africa. We can also achieve a fast-tracked rural electrification process through renewable and green energies. The fishing sector should immediately be reformed to ensure far greater distribution to traditional and local authority institutions so that the benefits of these natural resources are felt on the ground. Imagine a small village like Kamanya, a small place like Ovitoto, a small place like Ogongo, Okalongo, benefiting from the fishing sector resources, and that those resources begin to create jobs in those remote areas. Imagine a traditional community of the San, of the Ovashimba, Ovavemba, Ovahimba, receiving fishing quotas, getting involved in the process of doing business, obtain revenue from fishing quotas. Imagine for an Ovashimba, Ovavemba, Ovahimba, San, Ovatwe, what that would mean for the young child that now can go to school without the parent worrying about the cattle being the only means of income, therefore preventing the child from going to class. Imagine the structural change, the cultural transformation that happens in a traditional community when suddenly they have another stream of income that they can prepare the next generation far better than they have been prepared before. Education reform with a focus on securing further studies and opportunities in vocational and higher education with special assistance and intervention from developing partner nations to assist in driving toward technology production and assembly of selected products. These products include solar panels and other green technologies that are required both in agriculture and in our energy sector. Rwanda now has started to assemble cell phones. A country in '94 was killing each other. Small country, not a perfect democracy, but beginning to manufacture Volkswagen, now cell phones, Rwanda. And yet Namibia bragged about Peugeot. Those cars were basically assembled and brought here. They put the media there to say we have no Peugeot. But then when we went there, there's no more Peugeot. Nobody answers where those cars are. Of course, I'm trying to be French-oriented. We used to call those cars Peugeot. But I want to escalate to a French type of English, Peugeot. And it's a challenge. Creating a deliberate fund to support and generate youth innovation right now, to catapult young people who are in distress. When we speak of young people, it's not a fashionable political statement, not at all. It's a painful situation where young people are just left behind. Just left behind. Just today, I had a meeting with young men, 28, in Windhoek here. There is the manganese that will now be exported from Botswana, South Africa to Namibia. Huge opportunities for many of the SMEs. These young men were able to get a contract for 5 years to transport manganese. They did the business plan, met the requirements. The company wrote and said, we are going to give you the tender, signed that contract, took that contract to DPN. DPN gave loans for these young men to purchase trucks. Scania ordered the trucks, branded the trucks, ready to deliver the trucks for these young men. DBN says 3.4 million is ready with 500,000 for operational capital, 3.4 million for purchase of the trucks. In the process, listen here, ethnocentrification. Majority of those that are part of this SME process are Nama, Damara, Khaled, Herero, two Oshivambo compatriots. Suddenly, some individuals within DBN were fired who were part of approving the loan. However, those who were also Oshiwambo speaking compatriots, good for them, their loans were processed. As we speak, they have already started to repay DBN. The rest, yes, the rest, they have been told to wait because an internal investigation has been launched by DBN against their staff. Therefore, these other colleagues must wait, and Scania is getting worried. The company is saying, where are your trucks? What has happened today, big truck operators, 2 of them have pushed in 10 trucks because the SMEs are not coming forth with their trucks. And these 2 big operating companies are now each trying to purchase 30 additional trucks. Once they do that, the business opportunity for these SMEs are gone. Now, why should we treat each other like that? Whether they are Namas or Damaras or Ovambos, I don't care. As long as all of them got the same opportunity. And when we speak about issues in this brutal way, people say we hate Oshiwambo people. That is not the case. It's the brutal truth that we must just speak about. We are happy for those 2 colleagues of Oshiwambo descent. Well done. We are happy. But how does an internal disciplinary and process that is separate from the colleagues that are bringing business, how does that hold off their business opportunity and promote other people? This is the type of sabotage that DBN is also involved in. Dirty political games to endanger the contract of a major business opportunity for SMEs. This type of thing is what breaks one Namibia down. We must then also fast-track the genocide talks with the Germans, because it stands to reason that this is a historic question which, in a win-win agreement with German partners, without the involvement of the Namibian government as a central pillar, can really help various communities to rebuild their lives. This matter is sensitive, and the Namibian government has lost the moral position, if ever they had such a moral position, to be at the table. The Namibian government is pushing for 80% of the resources of genocide to be given to the government and 20% to the affected communities. And the argument is they must get the 80% of the genocide money, because if a school is built in Ovitoto, the government will maintain that school. Therefore, they need the 80% to maintain the school. Where did you hear this type of story?
Well, they are thieves. Why wouldn't they?
These are but some of the small, few, crisp issues that we have identified as matters that should be done right now, this year and next year, to begin to move this country forward, as well as the other bigger matters of a federal state. In a federal state, many people will get a better state because resources will now be managed by the people where they are in a federal system. You will not have the Zambezi region crying for lack of development because the federal state of Zambezi will manage their resources. You will not have a problem of people in the federal state of Umsati saying they don't have the benefits of the economy. They will be managing their resources in a far more equitable process of distribution of resources, instead of a center that dominates and steals and thefts from everybody. So as we end, we as a country can do much better, and it is within our reach to work for a better day. Our children deserve our best judgment to pursue a different Namibia. If we do not fight for them today, our fight will be their fight. And it is good to fight for your children today so that they will have a different fight in their lifetime. They can still not talk about genocide 30 years from now. They should still not talk about joblessness 30 years from now. They must still not talk about slums 30 years from now. They must be at a different level, culturally, economically, politically, socially. They must dream new dreams. They must not be hung onto the past and speak about unresolved historic issues. They must speak about uncharted new ways to make a better living. If you are young tonight, watching over live stream, you must ask whether your life has actually improved under the current ruling elite. If you are old also, from the 60s, the 70s, ask yourself, how has my life improved? Those of you that have voted, Is this what you voted for? Or are you voting because you are afraid that your community members will criticize you? Are you afraid to vote differently, to speak up and say different things about the injustices that we find, because you think in your village you will be ostracized from your ethnic group? Ask yourself these questions and take a stand in your life for the sake of our common future. It is time to start working on one nation, one society vision. It is a vision born from the common experiences of poverty and struggle. It is a vision of renewal and rejuvenation of society. The one nation, one society vision is based on the potential that this country holds for each and all of us, black and white, from all tribes, from all regions, and all over Namibia for all generations. We have enough resources to make a decent life for each Namibian. It is the vision for which the collective of our forebears sacrificed and laid down their lives for us to live. Let us not betray our forebears, but also not our children. It can be done to build a one Namibia, one nation, one society, and together we will get there. Join LPM, join our crusade, and remember, we never proclaim to be a perfect political party. We are not. We also do not aspire to be a perfect political party. But the political mandate that we have received that has brought us to the National Assembly requires us to do our best every day in the way we know how, to unseat and make uncomfortable the lives of those that are in power, to engage them robustly every day on all issues at every moment without falling asleep or without being co-opted. Because African governments tend to co-opt, as they did with one political party, smaller political movements. And we have to therefore appreciate the efforts that are being done to recreate a debating and discussion culture in this country. On this short note, I wish to thank you for having tuned in and thank everybody that has come. Our state of the nation is disastrous, terrible, and dire. It is the strength and the agility of the Namibian people that is keeping our society together, and it is that strength and agility that will propel us together, one generation after the other. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless Namibia. I end there.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Swartboy. Okay, so that we just get the speeches out of the way, I deliberately made Honorable Swartboy start so that we can give our panelists something to feed on. I think the presentation was very solid. The set of nation was also solid. So now we just give Honorable Isaacs an opportunity to give his opening remarks very quickly and very briefly. Then we can then move to the panel discussion. Honorable Isaacs. Okay, I think let's continue. Okay, I think since Honorable Isaacs is not available for the opening remarks, here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to introduce quickly our panel. Our panel discussion is going to be made up of 4 people. I think I'll start with age. No, not for any particular reason, but just for the respect. First, we have a community leader, Mr. Brian Black. Then we have an academic, PhD in sociology, Ellison Tjirera. I hope I pronounced that correct. Then we have a youth activist and former deputy mayor of City of Windhoek, Miss Rachel Nghimulitete. Then we have an advocacy and communications expert, Ndiilo Nthengwe. Okay. I think I'll just give quickly, give every one of our panelists an opportunity to just give their opening remarks. Because of the challenge of time, I think we started a bit late. We're supposed to start at 6, we started at 6:30. We have about 1 hour, 20 minutes to conclude whatever we're doing. Just try to be as brief as possible, not more than 3 minutes. We can start with the elder, Mr. Black.
Good evening, fellow Namibians. Firstly, I would like to pay my respect to the leader of LPM, Mr. Bernardus Swartboy, and for his very, what I really regard as a thought-provoking speech. Fellow Namibians, I'm here tonight not as a member of LPM, but as an invited panelist who, because of my love for this beautiful country of ours, and after having witnessed what is happening in our beautiful country, I took a conscious decision to dictate the rest of my life in working towards making Namibia a better place. Colleagues, fellow Namibians, Mother Nature has blessed us with a country of remarkable beauty. We are being praised by various people who come to our country. Tourists love to come here, and we have ample wealth. Unlike a country like Botswana, for instance, who look very well after their citizens. Now, if you look at Botswana, since independence until today, you will not find one single squatter, not one single shelter, corrugated house, not in Botswana. You will not find one single from independence. Now, this country have managed to do it with basically 3 sectors of their economy. That's all they have. They have agriculture, they have tourism, they have diamonds. But now consider what we have. Consider, colleagues, that our fishing industry is estimated to be at least 12 billion per annum. Where does the wealth of our country go? It's the question that we need to ask. I want to tell you that 2 things happened in my life which have pushed me to the limit, and where I decided that, Brian Black, if you love your country, get out there and do whatever it takes, even if you pay with your life. Number 1, what happened with me in 2010, I submitted a management fuel tender at the time when the government was using a fuel management tender. My management tender price was 6 million. Believe me, despite having the technology, the know-how, and having been the then supplier of government, all of a sudden, our company was not in the race, not even shortlisted. Now, in the interest of time, let it suffice to say, the reason why we were not shortlisted, a certain gentleman changes our tender price from 6 million to 96 million, added a 9, because the recommended tenderer that they wanted quoted 36 million. And the easiest thing with them was to put a 9 in front of our 6 million. I reported it in 2011 to the Anti-Corruption Commission with all the facts, through my lawyers, all the documents that was necessary to to support our case. Today, almost 9 years later, justice still has to be served. I see in my previous employment where we were making laundry soap for the state laundry, and our price would be, argument's sake, 200 bags, $200 for a 25 kilogram bag. And then a tender will go out, we submit that favorable price for government, we don't get the tender. What happened is, a few weeks or months after the tender have closed, you are faced with a situation where you have to deal with a briefcase operator, normally from the north, in the 4-0, that you will have to deal. And this guy have not even any guarantee. All he have is the tender. When he submitted the document to you as proof that he's got the tender, you see that he got it at a price which is 3 to 4 times what you have tendered. And you are now required to deal with this person. Colleagues, surface, because I don't want to exceed the 3 minutes that I was given, surface for me to say that the sad thing which also inspired me to put up is that we all fight for this country. We love this country. It's not only the comrades from the north who have fight. We have fight with them. But since independent colleagues, unfortunately we have a situation, and as Mr. Clinton said, unfortunately when you address these things, you are labeled as a tribalist. But the reality is that if you look at all positions in our government, from ministry to whatever, you will find that all the key positions, the supervisory, the managers, are held by one single tribe. 90% by one single tribe. I travel quite often through business to South Africa. And I tell you, every time when I'm traveling, I'm so ashamed of my country. Because when I go to Noord-Oever, right there at the south, nobody at immigration from the south is employed in a supervisory position. You cross the border in South Africa, and you then expect to have more or less the same thing where you will now see Zulus and Xhosas in this supervisory position. No. In the whole of Namaqualand area, most of those positions there are filled by the local people. So unfortunately, colleague, we have a situation where we have been having people stepping on us. And the sad thing is, if you say, sorry, you are hurting me, then all of a sudden you are tribalist. So the list goes on. I can share you with a lot of things, but in a nutshell, these are the issues that have really encouraged me to take up the fight. Maybe I should just tell you that another incident, as some of you might know, I was one of those crazy Namibian who in October, on the 31st of October, after I put out a petition which was signed by more than 20,000 signatures on corruption, I went to State House to confront the current president on corruption. And I will also tell you why I didn't proceed with further, but I have the petition. I'm waiting for the right person who should be president of Namibia, and my petition will go to that person.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blake. Thank you very much, Mr. Blake. That was good. That was at least straight to the point. Let me just also remind our panelists that our theme for today is One Nation, Two Society. is one nation, two societies. So let's try by all means to stay within that scope.
Yeah.
I will just give Dr. Tjirera a quick 3 minutes to give his opening remarks.
Good evening, fellow Namibians. Ellison Tjirera here speaking. Okay. Now, 3 minutes remarks. That's not fair. But I will try nonetheless. And first, I would like to. That sounds like sabotage.
Can I use
Yeah. Okay.
Huh?
Try that.
Take
Okay.
try this one. This one was working well.
All right.
He does that sometimes.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Ellison Tjirera. I do not particularly like to be referred to as doctor. That kind of put you apart from the rest, which I do not like. So simply refer to me as Ellison Tjirera or just Tjirera. That will do. I think academic titles have got their own space. So thanks for the LPM for the invitation. I would like to think that at one point in my life, LPM won't be Landless People Movement anymore. It won't be Landholders People Movement. So I think the L will still remain. But let me first try and take issue with the theme. One nation, two societies. I believe that we should always work with the correct vocabulary to understand the issues that we are dealing with. I, for one, do not think that there is such thing as one nation, or probably state of the nation. We can talk about one republic, because we have a constitution, we have an anthem, we have a defined population and a territory. So yes, we are a republic in that sense. And probably what we have got is one republic and yes, two societies. And I'm saying this for one particular reason. Probably I could take you guys back to what the president or the then president of Mozambique once said. And this is the late Samora Machel. He once said, for the nation to live, the tribe must die. For the nation to live, the tribe must die. And what I have observed from what my senior Mr. Black have said, and also what Mr. Swartboy has also said, it seems to me that the tribe is yet to die in this country. And this is why I'm saying we shouldn't probably talk about a nation, because the tribe has not died as yet. So for as long as we refer to others as those ones, or to ourselves as heroes, Awambo, or whatever, we cannot talk about a nation. Okay? Okay. That's the first round of remarks. Now let me try and get to talk to some of the issues that I think came out of Mr. Swartboy's remarks, which I think were very much incisive and very cogent. And I will try to organize my remarks around 4 points. Now your 3 minutes now become redundant. I hope you would allow me. I think the state of the Republic can be kind of understood through a number of things, one of which is the structural economic inequality. Structural economic inequality, which has been brought to us as a state-driven project of a colonial state. And for that reason, if we are very serious about the issue of inequality in this country, we must have an interventionist state. Not a state that is laissez-faire, that is kind of not engaged. In fact, some time back, happened to write a book chapter with my senior called Herbert Jauch. We wrote about, or we rather argued for a state that is interventionist. You cannot leave things to the markets. Markets are not interested in a common man. So we need a state that is very much engaged. So if we are to change course in this country, we need to have a state that is interested in dealing with the structural issues of inequality. Because I always argue that the inequalities that we have were deliberately produced by a colonial state. So if we are to address those inequalities, we must then have a state that is interested in of course, dealing with inequality. Now, the second issue is the economic crisis, which I think has been with us for quite some time now. And what in economic crisis, I mean, and this is not unique to Namibia, the economic crisis has been ravaging countries all over the world. But what an economic crisis does is that it exposes differential vulnerabilities. And these differential vulnerabilities are related to structural inequalities. So, of course, the issue of COVID-19, for example, have probably made this more palpable. When folks in an informal settlement have to choose between either dying in their shacks or contracting COVID-19, what kind of a choice do they have? Another issue related to economic crisis is also an absence of any serious manufacturing sector in this country. And I think Mr. Swadwe also touched on the issue of manufacturing that is negligible in this country. And he made an example to something that we would probably emulate. I mean, a country like Rwanda, a very small country that is pretty much doing very well. But here in Namibia, I mean, how is it that we are unable to produce toothpicks? Guys, Comrade Swadwe is talking about, that in Rwanda they are able to put phones together now, but we can't produce toothpicks. I go and sit at some, local restaurant in Katutura and I take that little thing with toothpicks and it's written made in China. That's scandalous. So we must forget about any serious manufacturing capacity if we are unable to do the little things. I think my friend Rui, we must put together a tender for toothpicks. And if we don't get that tender, then something is really problematic. Okay, the other issue is corruption, and I think Mr. Swadwe also touched on that, and I think also my senior, Mr. Blake, also touched on that with the 9 that was added before the 6. I mean, that's really corruption at the highest level. For those of you who do read newspapers, I think today Paulus Noah, with all his faults, was complaining about the fact that I think they only got 10 million for dealing with high-profile cases. And I was asking myself, is that an accident? And he was saying probably already the fish road scandal is going to probably take at least half of that amount. Just, the investigations and the like. So, that's kind of a very deliberate emasculation of an institution because people are simply not interested in fighting corruption. Okay, the last one. The last issue that speaks to the state of our republic is also a state that is increasingly becoming militarized. You must have noticed with all these Honkrans, Kalahari 1 and 2 now, I don't know, the other one is Kalahari Desert, Namib Desert, I don't know which one we're going to go to now. But folks, this is very problematic. The military does not belong to the streets, but that has somewhat become the state of our republic now. Why don't we have a well-resourced and well-trained police? These are the people who are meant to deal with internal issues of policing and the like. So, so that's a very terrible trend. And the fact that we move from one operation to the next and there is no agitation whatsoever, it's really problematic. And now this is the very, very last one. Again, going back to the theme of One Nation. My question that I would leave to the House is, whenever you question the state of affairs in your country, why should you be described as being unpatriotic? If we really have something called a nation. If you agitate about the state of affairs, why should you be called disrespectful? If the things that are being done by those in power indignify you, because I think we are very much going to get to a point where people have got nothing to lose anymore because they do not feel any affiliation whatsoever to what could be classified as a nation. So, and this is why I would really want to take issue with this issue. I don't think that we have any nation. I'm sorry. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much for that. I think now we move to the youth aspect of our panel. Rachel, just briefly, in line with our theme of One Nation, Two Societies, your good 3 minutes of opening remarks.
It's a good evening. Oh my word, hearing myself speak. But yes, good evening and good evening, Honorable Bernardo Swartboy. I am really honored to be here.
Use that mic, the one that is right here.
I think. How do you switch this one off? Yeah, okay. No, I switch this one off.
Or did you switch it off?
I switch it off. It's equal. Try the one that you have now. Try the other one.
Maybe we can try without the mics. Can people hear?
Yeah, we can.
Wait.
This one was working well. Let's share this one.
We can use one mic
This
out
one
of the
was
four
Yeah.
and not have.
Try this one.
Okay, let me try that.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's not. I think it's somewhere there.
Okay, I hope this time is okay.
No, I think it's off somewhere there.
Okay. Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So I am Rachel Nghimulitete, and I am the former Deputy Junior Mayor of the City of Windhoek, as well as a youth advocate in my own capacity. And I believe in a progressive Namibia, an inclusive Namibia. And I just want to say that I love you all. I love you all because you are Namibian. You're from us, you know, and we are supposed to be one Namibia, one nation, and I really do believe in that. Now, for me as a young person, I think what is going on in our country is very worrisome, and I believe we can do better because Namibia is for us. It's our Namibia. No one will fix it for us. We're supposed to fix it because this is our country. It's the only country we'll ever have. Even if you go to another country, you will always miss home because this is home. And I really believe that, you know, in order to curb problems that we are facing today, now, we have to go back into history and really think of where this problem started. You know, I really feel like it goes back even during colonialism when there was apartheid. We were taught that no, this one is because divide and conquer was what they were planning to do, and I believe we didn't unlearn those toxic traits that we've learned in the past. And I really do believe that if we go back into history, I like to call it that you know how we talk about racism and white people, they're being racist, but as black people we are racist against our own people. And I think that is very toxic, and we can't move forward until we deal with that. I know it's a difficult topic to talk about because it started a long time ago where we were taught that no, this one is a Herodotson, the Damara we live in. Even now, today, we have Bambu location, Damara location. Why? Why did we not change the systems, the toxic systems that were existing in the past to make it better for us today? Because we are different. We were not, the systems that are available today or that are here today shouldn't be those of the past, because we are now supposed to be one nation, as said. And I feel in many ways we as individuals, as Namibians, are perfect subjects of colonialism. And I say this because, sometimes, even going to a restaurant, some people deal with, when you are serving a white person, you serve differently. When you're serving a black person, your fellow person, you look down on them. You're like, no, they probably won't give me a tip, or you serve differently. Why do we do that? And even in my family, I get some aunties who do something wrong, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're being so black. What do you mean? Wrong, good and bad is not a thing of color. It's a people thing. And if we think this of our own people, then can we really move forward? And I really do think we have to revisit history and really just learn our toxic traits. We let us heal within. Let us stop being racist to our own people. I think we can move forward by doing that. And in regards to corruption and debt that we're in today, it's really saddening, because even for me to think about how am I, if I'm going to lead Namibia one day as president, let's say, will I be able to lead a country that is in so much debt? There is no sustainable economy. That even I am scared of leading a country that is in debt, because what am I going to do? Even if I have the brilliant plans in the world, with so much debt, can I move forward as a leader? Do I then have to first fix those problems? I said that maybe you need to fix the problems now, our current government or our future government, fix the problems right now so that we don't have to deal with it in the future, kind of thing. And I really do believe in that. Also, I really just want to talk in terms of, won't be too long, and so I really do feel like as Namibians we have to change our priorities. What do we prioritize first? Is it vehicles? Is it people? Reprioritize, because I feel like we're looking at the wrong things. Even as a people, we're supposed to be Namibians, and as a government, I feel like we're prioritizing the wrong things. We're prioritizing the wrong things. And in regards to unemployment, it's so sad. Currently, they say unemployment at the end of 2020 will be at 48%. That is scary, even for us, And I know currently I have a job, but then to think of, many other people fellow youth who don't have a job, that is saddening, because these are my people, Bambu Damara Hero, this is our people. And how does the world look at us with such a large number and such a small population? What are we doing wrong? There's kind of questions that we need to be asking. And maybe if we do know what is the answer, if we have the answer, then how do we move forward from it as Namibians? And there's so much hate going on in our country. I feel, as I said, perfect subjects of colonialism. We are so divided. How do we fix that? Even as fellow Namibians and stuff like that. But I really would like to applaud, that there's so much money that has been put at Development Bank of Namibia to give loans to individuals, young people. I really just do hope with all my heart that money goes to the right places. Because even if we do have the money, will they get it? Will people who are deserving get it? Is the question that we need to be asking. And I hope maybe we need, and corruption is so bad. And I know every country has corruption, but as Namibians, how do we change, the status quo, and maybe how do we make our systems more transparent, more that it's so hard, anyone can get greedy, but maybe the system is so easy to be corrupted that so many people are doing it. How do we make the system more stronger, that even if you want to be corrupt, even if the devil in you says I want to steal $5 million, it will be so hard for you to do so. How do we do that? How do we make our systems more transparent? And I really would just like to encourage the youth out there, if you are watching, to get involved and really, because I feel sometimes as young people, we don't know what questions to ask and where to look because we don't know, you know. So get education, maybe start at your local constituencies, see who it is, who is your counselor, you know, what are they doing? You know, sometimes I think we look so much at the top that we forget to look at the bottom, you know. So our leaders down there, you know, what are they doing, you know? Can we maybe write proposals to them to do such, and, you know, really just get education, because I do believe education is power. And I was talking about the fact that, you know, loans to young people to start businesses, and I feel this is a good way to start, because somehow, you know, people are graduating, they're not having jobs, and government does not produce enough jobs to give all of them, you know, an opportunity to get employment. And we would like to take that burden off the government. If we could just get the opportunity to start our own businesses, then we take that burden off of them, you know, and we are empowered as a people, you know, as young people, and that we can get involved and just participate. Now I have so much to say, but like time and everything, and I want to give everyone else, you know, an opportunity. But like, thank you so much, and like, I hope if you're a young person out there that you are hopeful, and let us stop hating each other. You know, we are one. We are Namibians. You know, come on. But yeah, thank you.
Just Ndiilo, we can just give your opening remarks.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you once again to LPM, Honorable, for having us, or for having me here as well. Just to introduce myself, my name is Ndiilo Nthengwe. I'm the Advocacy and Communications Officer for Outright Namibia. I don't know if you've heard about Outright Namibia before. Outright Namibia is a human rights-based organization that advocates for the voices of sexual, gender, and sex minorities in the country. I'm about to open a can of worms. Yeah, so that is what the organization does. And I think within the theme of One Nation, Two Societies, I wanted to highlight the society that falls under the marginalized society within the two societies. Which obviously includes the women and includes sexual and gender and sex minorities in the country. I think the reason why I'm also very much honored to be here is because we need more political will, especially in Parliament, that can echo the voices of those marginalized and vulnerable groups, so that their voices are also definitely are heard, and their needs are also addressed in Parliament. And so it's so many instances that happen across the country where we find abuses, human rights abuses, and I'd like to even bring to the attention the incident which we are all aware of the Gobaba's incident that took place, of a trans woman that was harassed there. And that is a national issue. That is something that it's socio-political issues that must be raised in Parliament as well. And so, taking from the points that Honorable mentioned from the beginning of the presentation, where you spoke about this woman that wakes up at 4 a.m. And she really she doesn't have much to her name. She's poor or she's marginalized. I'd like to expand that narrative further in looking at how, as she wakes up at 4 a.m., she's already socially excluded based on the environment that she's in, and then she goes about her day and probably would experience an instance of gender-based violence, sexual harassment, and maybe if you're a trans woman, maybe you'd be met with further abuse and discrimination. And so those are I think the issues that must be highlighted, things that are intersectional, that are cross-cutting socially, so that they are not just taken as one aspect in society. And I think that speaks to why we have so many ministries, because they all have to be concurrently tackled. I think we've seen over the years, 30 years post-independence, a hierarchy of oppressions. No, we are focusing on corruption now. You have to wait for your human rights later. I don't think that human rights has a timeline. As well as corruption, fighting for corruption, there is no timeline in specific issues that we are supposed to be addressing, because they all are cross-cutting and we should all address them intersectionally. The other is a question I'd like to pose to our Honorable. I think it's a weird question, because we did speak about the SWAPO headquarters, and I'd like to pose to Honorable, how might you envision a headquarters that honors your party and the efforts that they bring, but at the same time does not insult the dignity of the people that you serve? Because what we've seen with the comparison with the SWAPO headquarters just across our state hospital is that it does insult the dignity of the people that they claim to have been serving 30 years later. So how might your headquarters at least reconcile the dignity of the people that you intend to serve, while still honoring, of course, it must look nice. We want to go in there and yeah. The other is also what, sorry if I didn't get your name properly, Dr. Ellison? Ellison, yes. Because he mentioned around unemployment, right? He mentioned structural unemployment. And I also want to add there, it's structural and it's racialized, and to a degree also tribalized, right? Because we have the 46%, but now when we try to break it down, majority would be black, and then further it was illustrated, it's women, and then further then is the other marginalized groups, it's maybe even sex workers, it's the LGBTQ community. It stretches so much further, but we have to acknowledge that definitely there are categories in this structural inequalities that we do face that must be also intervened on. And the other is also with employment, unemployment, and how that links to the lack of or the quality of education. Because we need to look at how is it that we have so many, these institutions that produce so many graduates, you know, with that we would call state-of-the-art education, but they still don't have employment. You know, so it means that the issue there is definitely, I would say, it's racialized and it's structuralized. We have our white counterparts that as soon as grade 12, they already own businesses, they own land, they own this, and that is the colonial wealth that is circulated in our country, which obviously further excludes and marginalizes our youth. And so that's why I definitely buy into the narrative that there is no, for me, yes, I would work hard personally, but when I look at what the barriers that are already in front of me, how might I apply that hard work to such an extent that I can also be at the same level on par with my other ethnic peers, you know? So those are the things that came up. I would even say with 30 years post-independence, so many issues that really are, that we've been highlighting as youth, you know, and I know that there's a lot of conservatism. There might be even a gulf of conservatism in the room, but we should also look at abortion laws, for instance, pro-choice, making sure that women have their choices over the autonomy of their bodies, making sure that we tackle the scourge of rape culture in this country, because we have a serious problem, and it does take a lot of political will has to be in there. We have to constantly champion these and echo these concerns in Parliament, so that at least we know that we are addressing them from a very much more institutional point of view. From civil society organizations, we can only do as much as we can, but we do need the how do you say, we need the apparatus of Parliament to be able to spearhead our agendas further. And that is a collective thing. It's not just, we're not segmenting things, you know. As I just mentioned, it's not a hierarchy of oppressions. You're just intersecting them and making sure that they are approached at the same time. So yeah, I think that is my part on how I would look at one Namibia and two societies, and how we can all now contribute towards that. I think I got my perfect time.
Thank you very much for that. Now we will now move into the question and answer section. What I'll try to do is, most of the questions I will sum them from the address by the Honourable. I think if we really zoom into the Honourable's address, there were very key issues that came out. One of them is the issue of unemployment, either youth or just unemployment in general. There is an issue of corruption. They also touched a bit on the issue of social safety nets. Then obviously he spoke of inequality. So I think those would be our key pillars of discussion for tonight. My first question, I think this goes across the panel. Everyone will get an opportunity to answer, but let's be as brief and straight to the point as possible. Honorable Swatbo spoke of a challenge that is bedeviled in Namibia today, a challenge of housing, land, be it urban land or farming land or rural. You can't really separate these issues. What, to the panelists now, what do you think should be the solution for the country to deal with the question of land, be it urban land or rural land or farming land, in a manner that is acceptable to all? In what duration would that be? I can start with Mr. Black.
I must say it's quite a challenging question. Let me start by saying, colleagues, those of us who grow up in the old location and then ultimately ended up in the then Katutura, if you look at the houses that the racist colonial regime built for the people, those ones here, OT, that's where I grew up. If you look at those houses and you compare them with the houses that our current government is building for the people or allowing people to build, it is a hell of a national shame, without a doubt. It's a difficult thing, but I personally, and I must say sometimes I think business and not so much, everything for me starts with business way of thinking. Now, if you look at the situation and what happened in Namibia, at independent, our government did not decentralize government. Everything is happening in Windhoek. Now, again, if you consider, for instance, with countries like Botswana, Botswana's headquarters for the National Railway is not in Gaborone, it's in Mahalapi. It's decentralized. So because ours is all happening in Windhoek, the people are much roaming to Windhoek in search of a better life. You know, so we don't prepare or have a system in place where the people come to a well-developed infrastructure. So I think what needs to happen is to start thinking of decentralizing government. I simply don't understand why fishing, for instance, should be in Windhoek. Why should fishing not be in Walvis Bay, the Ministry of Fishing, not being in Walvis Bay or Lutherans? Why should the Ministry of Mines, for instance, being in Windhoek and not being in Shumep or Oranjemund, where mining activity is? So once you start decentralizing that, then people will not much roam Windhoek and start demanding all kind of things. But coming to the squatters, one of the shame of even the municipality of Windhoek, why could what they are currently doing, supplying basic supplies such as water, the tanks, and that they are putting, that they are asking business community, which the business is prepared to assist with. Why could these initiatives not have been done earlier? Why did we have to wait for Corona before we pay attention to that? Mr. Chair, I will stop there, but there is something on manufacturing, and because I'm also sharing the manufacturing, which I want to clarify. So if you allow me, I will do it now. Otherwise, I'll wait for whenever the opportunity presents itself.
Okay, I think we will come to manufacturing. Maybe let's just allow the other panelists to tackle the one. Ellison?
Okay, quick one on how we should address the land question. What was your question? Look, we have had two land conferences. There was one in 1991, and we had the last one in 2018. A good number of resolutions that were adopted at the 1991 land conference were never implemented. I wouldn't expect a different story from the 2018 land conference. So for as long as we are not serious with resolutions that we take up, then we should forget about resolving the land question. Now, with regards to agricultural land in particular, as we know, one of the serious problem has been the willing seller, willing buyer principle. And from what we hear, the 2018 Land Conference has done away with that principle. But we have not been told as to what is the alternative. You see, it's deliberate confusion, you know. You remove something, but then what is it that you put in place? Okay. So, a good number of people who have been resettled over time, what we hear as well from officials in the land ministry, time and again, is that they have been given land and then they left the land barren, they couldn't produce or they couldn't farm productively. But these folks were set up to fail. How do you give someone land without the attendant capacity to farm productively? Yeah. So if we are serious about addressing the land question in as far as agricultural land is concerned, we must build capacity. So give people land and build capacity such that they farm productively. So that's just a quick one. With regards to urban land, we have to manage urbanization. A good number of government officials as well from the Ministry of, Regional and Urban, whatever it is. These ministries keep on changing names while the stuff remains pretty much the same. Anyway, the one that deals with the administration of urban land and all this kind of stuff. For a very long time, what we hear is that there is a problem of urbanization. You would hear someone saying we have to stop urbanization. You're like, are you cuckoos in your head? You don't stop urbanization. You manage it, right? For as long as there is nothing in our concerto, young people are going to come to Windhoek. Yeah. So you have to deal with those issues. How do you retain people in areas where they originate from? How do you make those areas attractive? Such that even when someone is sent to go and teach at Okunjeto Combined School, doesn't feel that he's being sent to Lubango Dungeons. Yeah. Okay? I will leave it there for now.
Okay, Ndiilo, you want to take that one?
Try that one now.
Just take that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the question is on land, and I would say, because I would rather compliment from LPM's manifesto what I was able to read on the land, where I think maybe this is an approach that I would like to see how it pans out in future, where the LPM proposes the anti-land corruption public protector. So I'd like to see how that pans out in further developing land, or in making sure that the majority who have been landless for a while have access to land through that mandate, I would say. The other is just, I don't know, I think, and not to exclude any groups of people, with myself it's more as a youth really looking at how technology is revolutionizing everything in terms of land, in terms of ownership, in terms of how the land issue, or the I don't know if it's farming specifically, where you'd find people developing specific applications and now selling through these applications and farming through these applications because of technology, even linking small scale farmers through that. And you see that in different institutions where they come up with innovative ways. Students do that with innovative ways, and so I'm just looking in terms of how technology can be applied to the land question, while still understanding that obviously we have a huge internet issue in the country, but you have to start somewhere. So I'd just like to put that forward to see how LPM would address that as well.
Thank you very much, Rachel.
I feel like It's so important what was said at that table, decentralization as well as urbanization, and making sure that the reason why it's so filtrated, so many people in Windhoek is because people are moving here for opportunity, and there's no opportunities where they are from, and that causes more stress on city of Windhoek itself, and they cannot keep up. More shacks are built because rent. It's so ridiculous that even as a young person, even if you get a job, most of it will go to rent. If you want a good place, a decent place. If you want to save money, you go and make a shack because that is the only one that is cheap, So it's a really, really big problem, and I really feel like, urbanization and decentralization is really important. But at the same time, also make sure that, rent is reduced somehow, What is the government doing to, help us, And at the same time, also the housing prices, it's ridiculous for people that, because, how I look at it is that, before independence, we only had 25 years. Maybe my parents didn't have an opportunity to an education. We're in the north all the time. I'm probably the first person to be educated in my family and graduate. And then so there's poverty down the line. I come to Windhoek and I have nothing, and so I don't have land. My parents were never given land. Still, even after, so it's so many things that were not fixed in the past. That is just a mess right now. And I feel like even us as a generation, we are in a hard time because we pay black tax. These are some things that we talk about all the time. Black tax. My family, I have to, when I get a job, I have to feed my cousins, my uncle's children. I have to feed my parents also because they are so pure. They never got education. They never got anything. So it's this kind of things that we need to talk about and really fix. I really feel land is a very important topic. It's very sentimental and gets people very angry because how don't you have nothing in your own country, kind of thing. So I really think there's so much that we can do, and also implementation, as was said already, because we have so many good policies. People say we have great policy, but implementation, where does that end? What does it even make sense that we have the policies, but then they're not implemented, or the money is put into land, but then nothing comes out of it, So it's really things that we should start talking about, because, and especially as young people also, let us be at the forefront of this, because we are going to be left with this, So it's very important.
Okay, I think that was articulate enough. The other issue that seems to have come out very vividly in our Honorable Swart's both a presentation and in speech is the issue of unemployment. Well, there's always been this notion and belief that Namibia's type of unemployment is structural. There is no communication between what the educational institutions are churning out and what industry is absorbing. And also, there's always been that issue that there is a very big void that has been left by technical institutions, people that train artisans. That void is not filled. Youth unemployment said that on average 40%. To all our panelists, I think we can just go across without any particular order. On the graph that Honorable Swartboy offered there, what do you think is the most sustainable way of dealing with both unemployment from a structural point of view and also from a point of view where you create opportunities for entrepreneurs? We can start with Rachel.
I was thinking for a bit. But like unemployment is such a big issue, especially youth unemployment, because I speak a lot for the youth because I'm a youth advocate, but also for everybody else. And in regards to unemployment, I really feel that what I have said before, that we need to be given opportunities, that even if they are, sometimes the opportunities are there, but they don't reach the right people, or the others, I would call them the others, don't get the opportunities, others that are not, they don't have connections maybe, or they're just not at the right place at the right time. So, the opportunities may be there, but we don't all reach them. So how do we make the opportunities more inclusive of everybody, that everybody can have, a seat at the opportunity, but also we would like, as young people, I know I've spoken to so many, and we would really, there are so many brilliant people, brilliant ideas out there, and it's so sad to hear that, the tribalism thing, that, maybe even if you have the opportunity, you have an idea, but then you're of a specific ethnic or group, you will not get it. That is so sad to hear, and I feel like it's a step back as a country and as a people, but really we really need need startup capital, because as I have said, we come from a line of poverty, the others, we don't have the capital that even if we have an idea, we can't start a business. And so capital is so important, and to help us also take the burden of the government, as I have said, because if I can create a job, I can create opportunities for other people, I can be my own boss, I can create employment for others too. So really making sure that young people who have brilliant ideas get capital to start their businesses, and also making sure that each opportunities are inclusive of everybody.
Okay, I was still writing, sorry. Okay, so I don't know what has changed in the last, maybe 5 years or 10 years. But what I can add is I've seen that there's a saturation of industries that actually then excludes the youth that actually go, and after they studied, they have to now go into these industries that have been saturated already. Where we find that the specific markets look the same, the jobs look the same, the business ideas look the same. So you really don't grow, as a youth, you don't grow your skill set. So I think my part would be on innovation, because I do have the background in business innovation and technology especially, where we can use technology that actually is very much starving in Namibia. We have seen so many creative, innovative ways that youth come up with selling their products, or just even ensuring that there's some level of opportunity for them for employment. So I would look at really the innovation space and technology space, and then I would actually have government implore companies that they have specific mandates or specific yearly, annual something that they have to ensure that the youth are placed in their companies. Because as much as we spoke about the structural part, we must not forget that there's also the racial part. And the majority are obviously the black students or the black and brown students who don't have access to these workplaces. So how we have so many companies, but at the same time, we have majority black who are unemployed. So where are all their counterparts when we know that there are minority white groups that are constantly placed in spaces where they can find that employment? So we look at government imploring now companies, a specific, even if it's a policy or whatever it is, a framework that they can come up with to ensure that this youth that is going through this tertiary institution, at the time that they are done, they are placed in a specific space where they are able to, even if it's on an intern level, their skills are still being built, they are being capacitated to a specific way, and they are obviously being compensated for that as well. So that looks at now also looking at how businesses are being registered now in our country. I don't know if anyone else, like with myself, I've been to BIPA before, and we already know what it looks like there in terms of trying to register just a simple concept even for a company. It's long processes, and you have to wait 2 years, 3 years. In South Africa, it's in less than how many days? It's really not even that long. And in other countries, it's in a few hours. So I think where the business registration also with the youth that really have so much talent, that they'd like to express through their businesses, so that issue there can be rectified somehow. And then through that, we can look at now the businesses that now thrive, where we get subsidy or support from governments or different CSOs or funding, so that the businesses can grow. And through that, I mean, students, we are students, we are youth, we are actually peer-to-peer learners. We even employ ourselves in a sense, in a very informal way. So because of how the other industries are already so saturated. So we look at unemployment from that perspective, where technology comes in, ensuring that there's some kind of mandate from companies to ensure that youth are placed in workspaces, and then also just the registration of companies, that whole process, so that it has to be revamped at some point. But yeah, that's the input.
Okay, Mr. Blake.
Yeah,
when I'm talking about decentralization, I don't only just mean public sector. I'm also including private sector as well. Now, unfortunately, colleague, in my opinion, there's one of the areas where the SWAPO government have failed miserably. All the business people who come here to put up a business, they all want to be either in Windhoek or in SWAPO. In SWAPO, Walvis Bay. Why is it like that? You know, they're trying to get closer to either the transport, to cut out the transport leg, or they're trying to cut out the shopping leg. Now, if you, for instance, if you as a government are serious about creating employment for the youth, and by the way, I don't believe on the 48% unemployment. My personal estimate is youth unemployment in Namibia is over 50%, at least 52%. That's how serious it is. So if you are serious about it, you create opportunity, you incentivize businesses to put up a business in Keetmanshoop, in Marintal, in all those Kokonyato and those things. Even if it means that you have to come down with your taxation. Now, for instance, to come back to the story of manufacturing, that Namibia cannot even manufacture a toothpick. Colleague, believe me, I'm a chairman of the manufacturing industry in Namibia. We can manufacture a toothpick locally. We can. It used to be a passion of even the previous Minister of Trade, keeping on asking me the question. We can manufacture, but the reality is, you can only manufacture it if you can do it cost effective. If I manufacture a toothpick at, 3 cents, 2 cents, and the guy who imported from South Africa and China landed it here for half a penny or half a cent, it doesn't make sense. So if government is serious in creating jobs, there is, to me, 3 industries with the opportunity to create jobs faster than any other industry. It is manufacturing, it's tourism, and it's construction. The construction has been taken over by the Chinese. Unfortunately, we can only dream. Right now, as we are talking, maybe there is only 2 or 3 big projects happening right when as far as construction is concerned. One of them being the new American embassy. So the other 2 which we have, you know, unless we fight and get back construction from the Chinese, the other 2 we have is tourism and manufacturing. If we can, for instance, and I'm sorry to make always a reference of Botswana, but they are such a success story closer at home, and a country very similar to us. They have the same size, also 2.3 million people. And they just next door, and we don't have to go far to copy their success model. Do you know that if you want to start a manufacturing business right now in Namibia, your tax that you're going to pay is 32%. It's the same as what a retailer will pay. Maximum tax in Namibia is 32. In Namibia, it used to be for, when you start during the first 10 years, it used to be 18. And as my brother Ellison has called it, deliberate confusion. They have abolished the 18% for newcomers. There's currently nothing. So the maximum that newcomers also now are subjected to is 32. Now you take a country like Botswana, for manufacturer, right through Botswana, is the tax regime is between 0 and 7%. Between 0 and 7%. That's manufacturing tax. Why do they do it? Because they realize that manufacturing creates opportunity and jobs, much needed job for the people. The maximum tax in Botswana is 22%. So, colleague, how can a country with 3 only sector outperform Namibia in so many areas? Because we have a situation where our resources are not properly managed. If we want to be truth and faithful and honest, we have replaced colonialism with a regime that is very greedy, their pocket is bottomless, and they want to make as quick bucks as possible for themselves, not for the future. If we can manage our resources properly, believe me, there would be no people sleeping hungry. Every Namibian child will have at least a fresh liter of milk to drink every day. And these houses that we are talking about the rent and all those things, will become affordable because government drive it. Just check at the taxation for the youth, for newcomers in Botswana versus what we are. What incentive do you as a youth get when you want to buy a house? Do you know that in Botswana right now as we are talking, when you pass grade matric, I don't know what they call, we have grade 12, it's not if you pass grade 12 or your matric, you get 100,000 pula. It's about 140,000. For that money, you have a choice. It's to reward you for passing your matric. You can either use it towards your education at any university of your choice, or you can go and start business. How is it possible that Botswana can do these things and Namibia, with all our resources, cannot do it? Do you just look at the fishing quotas? How many members of parliament have fishing quotas? There's 2. The focus currently is on the fish rod, but just on the fishing industry alone, there's 2 big fishing companies in Namibia, in the so-called international. Go study these 2 fishing companies. Look at the quotas that they're getting from the Ministry of Fishing. Do your study, investigate who the shareholders of those fishing companies are, and then you will understand why those fishing companies are getting those quotas. Think about what will happen if you give fishing quota for region instead of giving it to individual. You say this fishing quota is for Karas, this one is for whatever. You will create wealth. It's very easy to create wealth. This country is not a poor country. Don't be fooled.
Ellison?
Maybe short. Okay. The first one is that Mr. Black, I think we should then stop with the importation of toothpicks. Toothpicks shouldn't be imported into the country. Yeah, then just stop the importation. They are cheap because the market is flooded with cheap toothpicks. Just don't import them. Tell those packers that we don't need toothpicks. We have enough trees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Camel phone.
Yes, yeah. And I know probably we should, a good number of us should consider migrating to Botswana, because Mr. Black is saying very good things about Botswana, but probably we should also explore what is it that Botswana is doing, what can we learn from them. And we also have a country like Singapore. We should probably ask ourselves, what is it that this guy called Liu Quenyan has done differently? And Singapore, for example, it's a country that doesn't have much resources. What is it that they have done differently to be where they are today? So this whole argument of that there's a mismatch between skills that are produced by universities or tertiary institutions and industry is utter rubbish, and I think it has no relevance anymore. This has been said for a very long time, or probably it is deliberate, because capitalism as a system, and we have this has become a system that we subscribe to hook, line, and sinker. Capitalism as a system thrives on a reserve army of labor. You must have a lot of unemployed people because capitalism is not interested in paying people decent salaries. The private sector has not been able to deliver. It is very clear. So again, I will go back to my argument of a state that is interventionist, a state that does not import toothpicks. Yeah, let me leave it there for now.
Okay.
Can I sneak a half a minute?
Just now,
On the same topic.
Just now. I would prefer that we are very interactive since we are closing off because of time. I'm going to give our members of the public at least the chance to ask 2 questions. This could be directed straight to the panelists, or it can be directed to the Honorable Swartboy so that we create an interaction. Let's be very brief and straight to the point. Anyone from the public? Okay, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Joyce. I just have a question. We are talking about youth employment, youth unemployment, and industrialization, and so forth, so on and so forth. My question is, are we at a time where we can address these issues without addressing our education system? Because from my understanding, I think the education system is supposed to be incoherent with the industry that we have. Now, when our policymakers are setting up the curriculums on all these things, do they set it up in such a way that these graduates or whoever will cater for the market out there, and also including the creative industry, the arts creative industry? I mean, the creative arts industry in Namibia is not really given enough weight, and even it is kind of monopolized because then you only have the 2 guys that get the big tenders that can actually become rich by becoming artists and all those things. So basically my question is just that when if we have to speak about industrialization, if we have to address youth unemployment, can we speak about those questions can we speak about those issues without addressing our education system? Our students, for instance, are taught or educated in such a manner that they should go out there and look for jobs. But then we are not taught to be creative enough to create jobs within themselves. Also, again, given pressure by the creative good initiatives such as the SME banks, which again is now corrupted, which could have supported that. But then, yeah, shortly to ask again, can we address these issues without first addressing the education system? Yeah, that's it for now.
I think Honorable Swartboy, you are better positioned to take that one.
I'm asking the whole, anybody who can, specifically Ellison, I would also like him to answer that question.
That should be good.
Yes.
So maybe we can start with Ellison.
You are spot on. We indeed have to deal with the issue of what is it that comes out of our universities. But at the same time, I mean, we have been told now for a very long time, study engineering, do this and that. I know of a good number of hard sciences graduates who can find jobs, qualified geologists, engineers, who are now cutting hair for a living, So, but that also goes to the whole question of adding value to also what you have. So, our economy is defined by this, obsession with extraction. You just extract and send it somewhere. So, how are you going to create enough jobs? How can you, have these geologists and engineers to put their heads to work if uranium mine is owned by Chinese? And of course, with them, they They simply just mine it in raw form and send it to Beijing or wherever, and then they have got their own business there. So most of the jobs are then exported, aren't they? So I think most of these problems are self-created. I think the answers are written all over the world. So value addition is very important. We have got an abundance of resources, but what do we do with them? It's always just, we do the little things. Even these diamond polishing companies, is that all we can do with our diamonds? Just to remove the ore and send them to, to Israel? So, yes, we have to indeed address that issue of what is it that we get out of our universities, but I don't think that the problem is particularly there. We have people who are skilled, but they can't do anything. Okay? You have someone who would have the most brilliant idea to, I don't know, to harness the abundance energy of the sun into some very cheap solar, but if this person say, could I get a loan from TB and this will produce, clean energy and it will make us kind of less reliant on ESCOM and stuff, then the question of who is applying for this? Is it Rui from Lutrets or is it Ellison from Nghimulitete? So these are, I think, the questions that we have to take seriously.
Okay, Mr. Blake, you want to add?
Yeah, I would like to say, Joel.
Maybe you can also
Joel?
just add on that.
Yeah, I do. Your question is so valid. You will constantly get from the employer side. Now, I'm not saying there is merit, but the complaint that they have is that our tertiary education institutions don't train the young people to be ready for vocation, and that they have to invest a lot of money into training as well. And as you know, the maximum that most employers can get from the training authority from the training levy is only 50% of what they have paid. So if we can have a system where employers can provide training and really prove that they have provided the necessary training, that those employers claim 100% of the levy what they have paid, it will help, it will go a long way. The other issue that I wanted to highlight with regard to unemployment among the youth. Colleague, I always say, if we only celebrate our successes and we don't acknowledge our failure, we will never be a prosperous nation. In our youth, there's two types of people. There is the youth who really want to get employment and who can't find it. Of graduates, as Ellison has said, from universities. There is also the youth who, because they've got a certificate which confirms that they have a degree or diploma, will only apply for a job if it is a ministerial position. They would not like to start on an entry level. They would like to start on that level. Then they don't get it. I have experienced it even with members of my family, where they get the degree from, some of them are good university degrees. But if you don't get the job for which you have studied, you must be prepared to just get your foot in the door. Start a little bit lower and get in. But sometimes the youth, really, they themselves, they're not prepared to do it. I have encouraged one of my nieces who was struggling to get employment to volunteer. She had 2 degrees from University of Cape Town. I encouraged her to volunteer to do internship and for free, to work for free. She worked for 6 months for free at UNESCO. And so sometimes it's also a mindset of the youth themselves.
Okay. It's an issue of mindset. Maybe what we can do, because of time limitations, we can then move to our last round of questioning. I think the other thing that also came out vividly was the issue of corruption. we can just start with the young squad that side, maybe with Ndiilo. Our question then becomes, what seems to be the challenge? Where at the bottlenecks in terms of dealing? Maybe after the last round?
I actually just want to state something, coming to corruption, and what Honourable Professor, because I want to leave now. Like he said, no, the example that Brian brought about the 96 million, and what had happened, it's still ongoing with the manganese, and then there is a gentleman here in this country who had a contract to produce condoms for the Ministry of Health for 17 years. Don't you think my voice is loud enough? For 17 years he had the contract. He produced condoms. He did not only produce them, he built a factory. He employed 55 people. That needs to stop. And this is where I become as mad and as angry, and it's my cousin over there. So, after 17 years, after building a factory, employing 55 people, someone else got the tender last year. He's not adding any value. He's not producing here. He doesn't have a factory. He got the tender. So what he's doing right now is he's sourcing condoms from South Africa. So now you can imagine now with COVID-19 that things don't come through the border the way they used to. That needs to stop. We, like Honourable Swatwa said, we should be vocal. We should go. This needs to stop. The DBN story also needs to be sorted out. Why? The top managers there, it's people that I know personally, a friend of mine, people that were sent home because of other people hijacking something where other people could have earned a living. I am so sad, but we cannot stop there. All you need to do is go out there and get more people joining LPM. Only then we can make a difference.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I think that was sound enough. We can now go into our last round of questions. I think the idea that the issue was of corruption. Maybe you can also just combine that in a very rather brief round off. Our question is, where is the loophole? Why are we not able to deal with corruption? Then you can add that with your round up. We can start with Ndiilo.
Okay, thank you for the question. I think with corruption, I would like to maybe just make a comment on it more than really talk about the loopholes, as I feel like I might really be speaking out of my depth here. And I'd really like to learn from everyone else that would have that part to speak on. So I think the way Honourable Swatboy contextualized what corruption looks like in the ordinary human, or the ordinary lives of human beings or of Namibians, was a really true reflection of how corruption should be really at the pinnacle of all of these discussions, and why it's so important to root out. Because I'm just looking at corruption in terms of human lives and what that looks like for the ordinary person who might have had a better chance at thriving in life or in future. But because of this thing, they are actually excluded now from accessing the specific resources. So I'm looking at corruption in that sense, without really tackling where the loopholes might be, because I feel like definitely there's a gap. I actually did want to just a little bit address Joyce's question on education. I think one of the things that really I have been, I've been thinking about it for a bit, but I think maybe tertiary institutions and businesses really need to sit together to assess the gaps that are there. Because what we find is, firstly, I would maybe study for something for 5 years, but in those 5 years, the market that I'm going into might be obsolete, or the job position, whatever it is I'm studying for, might be obsolete. So then businesses also have to now, it's within themselves to re-innovate and reinvent, what exactly in the next 5 years, 10 years, how might they envision themselves to be able to contribute at a much more agile, in a much more agile way to the economy. So we're looking at, even if it's a conference of businesses and students and tertiary institutions where they talk about really what are the areas in future that would be most, that we should actually tap into more in terms of education, so that we know that students are studying for something that would be there in terms of the businesses that would be employing them. So that there's not that inverse, we don't have that inverse thing where we have so many graduates, but there's no market for what they studied for, whereas the businesses can also come and say, you know what, actually, we've identified these gaps or markets. Maybe it's not a marketing whatever, but it's a specialist in coffee making, whatever it is, And then through that, different curriculums can be developed also, because now we're looking at the education system that is also very much larded with, and not to take away definitely from how much it contributes, but larded with very, this saturation of knowledge also that needs to also evolve, because the world is moving. Namibia also has to be on par with the rest, where technology and all the other innovative ways, innovative ideas come out of, that. So, yeah, that was my response to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. The issue of corruption in your conclusive remarks.
Yeah, but just before that, I thought of something on education and employment in general. Something that's really hurting us as young people is that when we graduate, we see a vacancy and it's asking for 5 years experience and we just graduated. So it's a thing of now the system. They are what do you call it? They are. What is the word? They are basically recycling employees, so only those people who have been in the industry and have worked for so long, they change from job to job, and if you're new at it, they're asking for so much experience that you cannot apply for it. But this is also stuff that we need to look at, because we can't get jobs because I just graduated. How do you expect me to have 5 years, 4 years experience? It's not fair. In regards to corruption, I feel like corruption, really kills sustainable development for Namibia. It's not sustainable in the sense that it's only catering for now. I'm thinking about me now, that I'm in power, that, what about the future generation? When they come, in my position to lead or in this country, what will they have left? I'm scared that, for the future generation, we might have nothing left, to lead or to build. So this is some of the things that corruption brings, it just kills sustainable development in general. And then also I think to make corruption, to combat corruption, I feel like accountability has to be there and impunity has to stop, No one's above the law. If you commit a crime, if you're corrupt, you have to be punished, and people have to really see that it was justice and this person got, what they deserved. Because if we are lenient on certain people, because this one is who, and then it just becomes a thing of people can easily, I need friends, and then I can do whatever I want and I'll get away with it because those are my buddies, kind of thing. So impunity has to stop. People have to be held accountable for what they're doing. Also transparency, transparency to the public, and making sure that, maybe, the budgets, it's shared with the public. It's accounted for, money is accounted for, that it's so difficult for you to get away with a certain crime because, there's so much transparency, and really just making sure that the system is so hard, that it's built in such, I don't know how to explain it really, but it's just, I really look forward to a transparent system, a system that is built on so much transparency that it's hard for people to become corrupt, because people will be greedy in human nature, but how do we make the system so hard to break that if you want to be greedy, you will be caught and you will be held accountable for what you have done. So that is basically just my, my contribution of corruption.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Mr. Black, your senior overview.
I must say, no, I think this one is not working. Can we get this one? Oh yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's fine.
I must say I agree with my two sisters on my right-hand side. But colleagues, let's be honest. Corruption in this country is deep-rooted. We will be fooling ourselves if we don't realize that corruption in this country is deep-rooted. The sad thing is that Namibian fish is rotten from the top to the bottom. And I'm saying it with all respect. What I have been here and being told, and evidence being presented to me since I started the anti-corruption petition, is hair-raising. It's hair-raising. And I suspect that if the Namibian government is serious about rooting corruption, before the end of the year, there will be more arrests on the fishing roadside. The people who are there is just the tip of the iceberg. But if I'm correct that corruption is deep-rooted, I will not be surprised if those who are arrested get released soon. Colleagues, imagine a situation where governments spend $62 million Namibian dollar to buy a 2 farm next to each other at 62 million. The excuse, and those farms is allegedly bought for the. I have made an on-site inspection. There is no army there. The farm is just sitting idling there. But the public, you get told that the farms have been bought for the army, and why they spend that kind of money is because there is shooting facility on that farm. Colleague, I went and did a research. The shooting facility that the government was prepared to pay that premium price for the farm, the shooting facility there would have cost them $2 million Namibian dollar. Go and pay a premium of that. It's not all. That particular farms, for the owner, now I must be careful what I'm saying, but for the owner of that farm, and I met the owner during a recent visit in Germany where I went on representing the industry on exchanging of value farm, on value chain between Namibia, Botswana, and Germany. The owner told me in his own words, I didn't hear it from somebody, to get a waiver for those 2 farms cost him 4 oryxes. I didn't hear from anybody else. The owner, the guy who sold the farm. So, colleague, to be honest with you, the only way that corruption can be defeated in this country is my personal way. It's either regime change, or with the current regime, you replace NOA as soon as possible with somebody more capable to be a real community watchdog, a real bulldog that can bite. But if you try to fight corruption with this current matters, then I think we're just fooling ourselves.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mdeka. I think that was vivid and solid enough. Ellison?
Okay. Regime change, that's serious. You know, in some countries it's high treason. Okay, I think I have got very short 4 points that I think kind of underpin the state of corruption in Namibia. The first one is institute.
Sorry, quick. This headquarters here of 700 billion, of a million, 700 million. Where do you think the money come from? From the 35 that the SWAPO members have paid? As per the president, do you really believe it? The 35 can build the SWAPO headquarters, etc.? It's stolen state money.
It's true.
Okay. So I think the first thing is institutional weaknesses. And I think these institutional weaknesses are very much manufactured and deliberate. The Anti-Corruption Commission, for example, is deliberately under-resourced and is also personalized. I mean, for as long as I have known ACC, it is synonymous with Paulus Noah. And in other serious jurisdictions, people who had such organizations are people of high repute, retired judges, people who have no interest whatsoever in, in abating looting or corruption. So we have a serious issue there, and I think Noah should have been gone long ago. So no question about that. Another issue is lack of political will, but probably this is barking at the wrong tree, if you like, because you can't expect political will from thieves. Because, so when you have people who benefit from the system, who loot from the system, how do you expect any political will from them to change the system? So, and I think there are a lot of examples that speak to, this kind of window dressing, like it's as if corruption is being addressed, but it's not really the case. I remember some time back there was a certain minister who was moved from one ministry to another, supposedly because there were issues of corruption there. Now, how do you do that? You move someone from the Ministry of Mines and Energy, you move this person to the Ministry of what is economic planning or whatever it is. Okay, now you know who that guy was. Not saying that he's corrupt, but how do you move? And that's what our president said. That I am very serious about corruption. I heard that there was some corruption going on in that ministry, and I moved this guy to another ministry. What are you saying? So you can shift corruption around, and then it becomes a different kind of corruption if you move it from mines to another. Okay, so yeah, and we have a serious absence of role models. We just don't have role models in this country. So if we have young people, you want to have a nation of people with integrity, where are the role models? Who do you look up to? And I always ask this to my students, who is your role model? They scratch their heads. Because, there's nothing. Someone enter politics, the next thing, instant millionaire. But like, where did this, this guy should be issues of the republic, laws and whatever. Where does he get time to make this serious money? And lastly, and I think this is now changing for the better, but for a very long time we have had very uninvolved and disinterested young people. Like we're just not so interested in the affairs of the state. In fact, when you start talking about politics or whatever, at some gatherings, around the consumption of unholy water, people say, why do you like talking about politics? This is politics actually decides whether you drink beer or not. So it's that serious. Yeah, so but I think we are now kind of moving into the right direction. Young people are now getting more interested, and people in political positions like in LPM and also in other parties. So I think we're probably heading there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Ellison. Thank you very much, Ellison, for the conclusive remarks. It always gets serious when it involves beer, but otherwise it was very engaging and thought-provoking engagement. I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody who took some time to attend this, despite this limitation that we have now. And I must also thank Honorable Swartboy for the thought-provoking presentation. To our panelists, thank you very much for giving your all and also making sure that the debate was rich. Thank you very much. Good night.
Let me just thank the colleagues personally because they have taken time, despite age. No, thank you, Program Director. I want to thank you as well for really doing a very, very sterling job, and we must really keep on doing this. this thing because he's not like us. He's very soft-spoken, and we don't want to challenge him.
And he tell all these people nice stories.
Nice stories, yeah. I want to really thank the young ladies. I must really say that it was refreshing to listen to you. We normally take the position to shut up and listen to other people when they talk because we have too much talking that we do and we forget to listen, and then it's important as politicians to sit down and keep quiet and listen and take in things. So it was really refreshing to listen to Rachel and to Ndiilo. You have talent, Dave. Absolutely. Dave, you have talent, the two of you. Don't get discouraged. Keep on working hard. Keep on reading up new content, but also don't just be activists generally. To love is to choose, and to choose is to take a stand. Fortunately, I'm actually asking you to also, at some stage in your lives, take a political stand through a structure, and therefore have a network of people that you can share your ideas with. So thank you very much, and it's really an honor to have been in your presence. Also, Brian and Dr. Ellison, thank you very much for your wisdom and your academic work. I have actually read your work with Herbert, and you know how the African state is a gatekeeper state, and those things that you wrote. I really appreciated the fact that you were able to interrogate issues and you know, unbundle some things to say that we don't have a nation and so on. One of the things I've learned is you don't invite a person to disagree with them. When they disagree with you, you just agree with them. Don't you? Because otherwise they will not come to your next invitations and so on. So thank you, Uncle Brian, also for really bringing your employer's perspective to bear. I thank those that have taken time, Cecil and others, everybody. Woody, thank you also for coming, and the colleagues that made effort to make this evening possible. I was just told by Dave here that our, the live stream has actually reached a little over 23,000 as we were busy. So it's been a good audience that is listening and following. And that's the route that we are really exploiting. Some of our posts reach even up to 224,000 on LPM stuff. So we really pride ourselves as a party that wants to reach as many young people as possible and try to be relevant. What you have done here tonight.
Old people too, man.
Sorry?
Don't write us off.
Oh, no, old people are voters. They are very loyal. I was about to come to that. Old people really, they come despite limitations of age and advanced knowledge and so on. They are the first to vote. We really try to do this discussion to give life to our political atmosphere in the country. And as Dr. Ellison said, you've got to be strong, because when you start questioning things, they fight back and start to say, but you are disrespectful. So you have to be strong to maintain a particular decorum to reach your particular goals, because you have a strategy. If you want to eat the meat, you need to slaughter something. And to slaughter that beast, the beast will be kicking and screaming. But you've got to slaughter it so that you eat the meat. So we are busy with the slaughtering process. Of an elephant, you know. Piece by piece. And it's not always easy. But thank you and have a very, very good night. And let us keep in touch. And please do come and join us when we have other events. And Joy, thank you and good night.